Thanks for joining us for this edition of Connections. I'm Renee Shaw. Dominique Wilkins was the driving force in the Atlanta Hawks' prominence in the NBA in the 1980s. Wilkins registered more than 26,000 points and 7,000 plus rebounds in his NBA career. In 2001, the Hawks retired his number 21 jersey. Now he serves as the Hawks' vice president of basketball operations. And just last year, the Atlanta Hawks unveiled a mammoth statue of the franchise legend at Phillips Arena. When he's not on the sidelines as a commentator for Hawks games, Wilkins is involved in several charitable endeavors, including the American Diabetes Association. Not long after retiring from professional basketball, he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and he lost his father and grandfather to the disease. Basketball Hall of Famer Dominique Wilkins, thank you so much for joining us on Connections.
Well, thank you for having me here.
It's a pleasure having you here. You were here during the time when the Southern Legislative Conference was in town here in Lexington that drew legislators from 15 different states, and you were one of the marquee speakers of that event. So we're so glad to have you back in our city. You've been here several times, though.
Oh, I've been here many times since the 80s.
Since the 80s. You got a particularly fond memory that you'd like to share with us of your...
Well, you know, playing against, it was a great Kentucky team that played against, you know, a couple of guys on that team. We all came out of high school together, Sam Bowie and Derek Minifield and Charles Hurt and all these guys. All of us came out in class of 79. And so we have a close relationship over the years. Sam Bowie, I know, still lives here now.
Yes.
So, you know, it's just, it's great to have guys like that still around that you played against. So a lot of fond memories.
I hope you get a chance to catch up with him while you're here. I know your schedule may be pretty tight.
Yeah,
but,
it's going to be pretty tight. Hopefully I get a chance to say hello for a minute.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I do want to talk about one reason why you're here, and it's because of all of your advocacy work with the Diabetes Association. Because you're diabetic, it's a genetic issue with your family. But I want to go back and talk about your career. Are you ever tired of people asking you about your NBA career?
I think when they stop asking, I should worry. You know, as long as they, as long as they're still asking and remembering some of the things you've done, you know, it just, you know, just keep you relevant for one.
Right.
But two, it just let
you know in the comments, what was your favorite game featuring Dominique Wilkins?
you know how much people appreciated what you've done.
Absolutely. And you've done a lot for the game. But I want to go back even further when you're from Paris. You're born in Paris, France, not Paris, Kentucky, which is up the road here.
And let's not get that confused.
Let's not get that confused. But you moved to Baltimore, and you lived, you know, in a high poverty area. Baltimore at the time when you moved there was a high crime area. Talk about your experience growing up and your, I would call it your street basketball hustle that you had going on to make ends meet.
You know, my father being in the military and my sister and I was born in France, and we moved, like you said, to Baltimore. And at that time, Baltimore had the highest crime rate in America, still in the top 5 to this day. And it was just a neighborhood where you really counted on each other a lot. And that's for security, comfort, but more importantly, just to keep everybody safe in that community. And it was a lot of the young guys in that community, I was a lot younger, who taught me the game of basketball, but more importantly, they said, hey, you're going to be the first one to get out of this neighborhood. And so
they already saw that in you.
They did. And when I was 12, and I remember they used to have me come to the boys club. Back then it was a boys club before it was boys and girls club.
Right.
And he said, I'm going to teach you the game, and you're going to owe me. And he said, not like you think. He said, only thing I want from you is to give to someone else what I'm about to give to you. And that's how I lived my life. So it gave me the courage to leave home when I was 16. And I left home when I was 16 and caught a Greyhound bus to North Carolina. Right,
to live with your grandmother, right?
Actually, not when I first got there. Actually, I got discovered on the playground by a high school coach. Okay. And after I finished playing, he said, do you live here? I'm like, I'm not sure yet. He said, well, where are you going when you leave here? I'm like, I'm not sure yet. So he looked at me, took me to his home, he showed me a bedroom, showed me the kitchen. He said, you can have all this. The only trade-off is you got to play for my team. And I said, okay. And that team ended up going 76-1 in 3 years.
Wow.
And that's how it all started.
Yeah. Did your mother and your brothers and sisters see that potential in you at that young age too?
Oh, yeah, my mother knew before any of my brothers and sisters. And I told her I was leaving home when I was 16, and she basically said, where was I going? I said, the only way I can help the family, help myself, I have to leave home now. Right. So she knew I had it in me. But they caught back up with me 6 months later. They moved to North Carolina. And then once they moved to North Carolina, I started living with my family again. But I live with my coach most of the time. I live with my grandmother part of the time too.
Yeah, I remember watching a documentary about you, and they're talking about you being on the basketball court in Baltimore, and one of the old cats is how I would phrase it, came up to you and said, "Well, if you could."
If you knew any of this, I did not know any of this. I didn't know he was from Paris. I didn't know he left at 16 and moved in with his coach. Let me know if you did.
You know, if you can do a slam dunk, if you can dunk, give you $20, and you did it.
Actually, it was a 12-foot goal.
Okay.
Back in that era, and I was a small guy, and they used to take bets on who could dunk on that goal, and they would bet on me that I couldn't, and I was the only one in that neighborhood could dunk on that goal.
You made some money, huh?
I made a little money, at least back then. I thought it was.
Sure, yeah. Back then, $20 a pop's not bad.
The older guys used to bet money on me to play one-on-one against other kids who were a little bit older, and they would pay the money every time I would go against a guy. They would give me $13 if I won. I never lost.
Wow. How often did you practice? Or was it just an innate kind of thing that you're just naturally talented
Well,
at
I played
doing?
basketball all the time. I mean, it was a natural God-given talent I had. I'm very thankful for that. But I never stopped playing basketball, even though I didn't play organized basketball to 10th grade.
Right.
But I played basketball all the time. We played street ball in the parks and stuff like that in Baltimore.
Yeah. So the one thing, I don't know if it's your greatest regret, and I want you to tell me what it is when it comes to professional basketball, is you didn't get a ring. Do you think we'd put too much emphasis on national championships, Dominique?
You know, yes, I think we do. I don't have any regrets when it comes to that. I look at having a wonderful career that I've had, and it is, look, there's only one team that wins end of every year. One team can win. There's a lot of great players who've never gotten a ring. But I think my ring is my career, the things that I was able to accomplish and the things that I was able to see and be a part of. That's my ring, even though I don't have a physical ring.
Yeah.
Because I look at that as being a
Do you think Dominique Wilkins would have gotten a ring if he went to a different team? Or what do you think would need to happen for him to get a ring with the Hawks?
person that have once in a million opportunities to be a part of something you love, have it as a career. I think it is too much emphasis on, I got to get a ring. I got to get a ring. Guys now jumping, no loyalty on teams. They jumping from team to team to team to team in search of a ring. I always wanted to measure my greatness against someone else. I didn't want to play with that guy. I didn't want to play with the Magic or Jordan or Larry Bird. I wanted to go against them.
See, that was going to be my question to you. Do you ever wish you would have played with Larry Bird or with Magic Johnson or with Michael
none of
Jordan?
us. No, I mean, we didn't think that way.
Right.
Because this is competing against the best. Yeah. And the only way you compete against the best is play against the best. I don't want to, and I guarantee you, every one of those guys would tell you the same thing. They didn't want to play with me. They want to kick my butt, and vice versa. So we didn't think that way.
Right. So when you look at these sweet deals, Kevin Durant, I mean, what do you think? When you talk about team hopping, what's your take on that?
I just tell you this from me, for my own personal, I would have never went to a team that routed me 2 years in a row in the playoffs. Because those are the teams that I hated, and I wanted to play against them. Now, at the end of your career, and if you got maybe 2-3 years left, in your playing career, and you go to one of those teams, fine. But early in your career like this, going from team to team, it's just hard for me. I went to Boston at the end of my career, but I was probably 2 more years before I retired. So.
And the goal is to get that illustrious ring, right? Is that what it's all driven by?
Yeah, I mean, and that Boston team, when I went there, I mean, I didn't think that we were going to get a ring. It was just the right fit for me at that time.
Right.
But I didn't purposely go out trying to jump on a team with the great players and try to win a ring.
Yeah. Do you go back and you watch some of that footage against you and Larry Bird doing those shootouts?
All the time.
All the time?
All
what
the
do you
time.
think now, looking back on that?
How great basketball was. We were part of history, making history. Larry and I had some great battles. Jordan and I had some great battles. Magic and I had some great battles. And Dr. J, being the granddaddy of us all, to play in an era and witness what he did would never be duplicated.
Yeah. You think we kind of moved away from that some of that
Oh yeah, definitely we have. I mean,
wonder is
the
gone a little
greatness
bit.
of these players. I mean, you're talking about super players in that era that played the game on a different level.
Yeah.
I mean, we played the game at a high pace level that people enjoyed to watch.
Right.
all
And
the
Michael
time.
Jordan always talked about you and how you could dunk. I mean, 2-time you've won the slam dunk contest.
See, 4 times I got credit for 2.
Now, why is that? What's the discrepancy there?
Hey, 2 got stolen from me. But that's another story.
Yeah, it's another
That's
story
another
entirely.
But no,
well,
but
you're good at that, and he recognized it.
But you know
because he could soar, but you could spin, and you could do all
well,
kinds of things.
we all could do pretty much the same type of things on the floor. But the thing that Michael knew, and we both knew, that when the fans came out to see us, they got their money's worth.
Right.
You know, we left nothing at home. We played the game at 110% all the time. I have a lot of respect for Michael. Michael, a very close friend of mine, and just one of the greatest players to ever live.
Yes,
you know, you hear all these people comparing.
Yeah.
You can't compare
What I
anybody
was
to him.
going to ask you, when you look at the lineup now of NBA superstars, who do you put in that top 3?
Well, I would have to be stay in our era. I mean, when you
Right.
talk a top 3, you got Michael, you got Wilt Chamberlain, you got Kareem, you got Magic, you got Bird, Oscar Robinson.
Right.
I mean, who do you put ahead of those guys?
Right. None of the new guys today,
Moses,
right?
Yeah, right. Moses Malone and George Iceman Gervin. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
That's just super players. I mean, that, it's unmatched.
Do you think people remember your NBA career differently than you do, or assign a different value to it than you do? And why is that? And
You
what
know
do you
what?
want them to really
No,
know about
I'm
who
very
you were?
impressed that people still recognize what I did as a player. I think even more so now than even when I was a player, what I brought to the game. Because people say, we took it for granted what you did.
Right.
And so for fans to still recognize that is
And you
big
just
for me.
don't make history by dunking. I mean, you scored almost, 25 average points a game. You just don't do that with a bunch of dunks.
Well, you're the first reporter who've said that it's very hard to get over 26,000 points on dunks. I only average 2 dunks a game. But when you see highlights, that's all they show.
That's right.
I had games where I've scored 54 and had 1 dunk.
Wow.
But I was a creative scorer. I scored in all types of ways. I was
Right.
on the perimeter, off the dribble, on the post. I got to the line more than 10, 12 times a night.
Right.
I only shot a 3-pointer if it was necessary, because my game was about attacking you, getting you in foul trouble so I can get you out of the game.
Right.
But that was the way we looked at the game, instead of coming down shooting 3-pointers all the time, because you don't put any pressure on your defense.
Right.
So that was our mentality.
Yeah. Talk about your European experience.
It was great. That
Yeah.
was great.
And
I
you
think-
have a championship. It's not like you
Yeah.
don't have one.
Yeah, I have a European. My first year in Greece, we won the championship. We had a great team. It's a different experience. I mean, when you went over there,
Yeah.
it's like the whole country embraces you.
Right.
We had over 250,000 people at the airport when we won the European title.
Wow.
It was. I was afraid.
Right.
Because people were trying to pinch your skin to see if it was real. I mean,
Really?
We had police in full riot gear, army escorting us through town. But that was great. Playing in Greece, and then I played in Italy for a year. It was just, I always wanted to do something different at the end of my career. So that was just something that the timing was right. And if I had a chance to do it again, I'd probably do the same thing.
Right. When you went to Greece, if I'm not mistaken, is that when your father fell ill?
My father felt ill, when I was
And that's
in
around
Greece.
1995 or so?
Yes. He fell into a diabetic coma. And I remember flying back and went to the hospital. He was still in coma, and they say he was getting better. And my mom said he was showing signs of maybe coming out of the coma. And she said, well, go back, because he didn't want you to miss the European Championship.
Right.
That was right around the European Championships. So I flew back, and as I go into my house, I almost felt like a cold wind come through my house. It was eerie.
You knew something was going on.
I knew something was wrong. I get a phone call 2 minutes later, and my brother-in-law said, you need to come home. Your father just passed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I flew back the next day.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know how I flew there and back and came back for the championship.
But in that same year, you lost your grandmother.
I lost a month, 2 months later.
Right.
Lost my dad's mom, was my grandmother. Then I lost his sister a month after that. So it came in threes.
Right. When your father went in that diabetic coma, did you know what that meant? I don't mean to say that.
No,
as
I
a put
really
down.
didn't.
And then how that might affect you. That
I really
maybe that's
didn't.
something you should be
Right.
concerned about.
I didn't, and we kind of ignored it. You know, my father passed, and then I got into my career. And I remember going to a restaurant, and I sat down to eat after a game, and I couldn't get up. I was shaking, sweating.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 30, probably 39.
Okay.
And so I ignored it, you know, but I had to eat something to get my sugar back up, and I was fine. And I remember a year later, I went to a doctor because I just hadn't been in a while. And because I was feeling off, but I wasn't sick. And he said, we got good news and bad news. Good news is you're not dying yet. And I'm like, what does that mean?
Right.
And he said, don't get alarmed. He said, bad news, you're diabetic. You have to have a lifestyle change right now. And that's when I realized I was a diabetic.
Yeah. So did you do the lifestyle changes he recommended?
Immediately.
What did that look like?
Well, I got on medication, for one. 2 is I changed my diet. And 3, I got back to exercising. And I took a lot of things out of my diet, like orange juice, ate a lot of green food.
The lifestyle change consists of the same thing with every single person that deals with diabetes.
Food, chicken, fish, turkey, a lot of greens. And I drank a gallon of water a day.
A gallon of water a day.
Which is, when you think about it, it's not that much water. If you average it out over the course of a day, it's not very much water.
Right.
And I lost 34 pounds in 2.5 months.
Wow.
And
wow.
so I've been on that same routine for the last 17 years.
So your diabetes is under control.
Oh, yes. I have 2 other brothers and sisters that's affected by it just this year. I got
So
8
they were
brothers and
diagnosed
sisters
this year?
this year.
Wow.
Yeah. So it runs in it's hereditary as well.
Sure, and African Americans have a higher propensity for it as well. And also we can, as a people, be a little bit more hard-headed about following sometimes doctors' orders or recognizing that it's something that we really need to take control of.
African American males are always, you know, they always let their ego get in the way of what they know that's what's going wrong with their health. We know it's something wrong, but that ego comes into play, and we don't want to make adjustments. We're afraid to go and see what's really going on. And I think the biggest thing for us as people, your first line of defense is getting screened. Everybody should get screened at least once, because you can build a portfolio of your health so you can see exactly where you're at. So if something goes wrong, you know how to fix it.
Right, because you found out your diagnosis in age 39, but how long could you have carried it without knowing it?
I probably wouldn't be sitting here now if I didn't make the changes, because my sugar level was over 350. I could have fell into a diabetic coma.
Oh my goodness. Remember what your A1C was when they first told you?
Probably around over 12. Wow. And right now it's under 6.
So how long did it take you to get in that normal range? Which would be, I guess, maybe around, you know, you're a bigger guy, but around 100 or so.
Ooh, it probably took me about 3 weeks to a month to get
Well, that's pretty good.
out. Because, you know what, but I got
But
back
not,
on track.
That's
very
right.
quickly.
And not everybody
can't
Dominique
do
is an
that.
athlete.
That's right. But again, you can't use what you don't understand to be afraid of it. You know, you got to ask questions. You got to take regular doctor visits, because it's just small changes you make. It's not like great changes a person has to go through or strenuous changes.
Right.
You know, you got to get yourself physically moving. That doesn't mean you have to go to a gym.
Right.
You go out and take walks.
Right.
You got to eat the best you can. And get
Now,
on
what's your
medication.
physical activity schedule look like?
Well, I do.
This is going to put everybody to shame, I'm
I
sure.
do. I walk 1 or 2 miles a day. I do a treadmill, which I call an interval workout, and it's real simple. It's only for 20 minutes.
Sure.
Basically, I'm walking on level 4 for about 2 minutes. Then I run on level 6, 7, 8
So
for 2 minutes.
high intensity training.
High intensity. So basically, what you're doing, you're getting your heart rate up, you're bringing it down, you're burning more calories, and you're sweating more. You only can do that for 20 minutes, and you're good. And I go out and shoot 100 shots with my sons.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's my workout, because
Yeah.
I hate really running. Just, you know, you run for an hour and you get at one pace and your heart rate really stops working. You know, you stay at one level. So that's why I do workouts that get my heart rate to bring it down. I'm burning more calories.
And of course, you probably shoot hoops every now and then.
Yeah, my son. I have a son in college at University of Virginia, and I have a younger son, and that's what we do. We shoot. We
Yeah.
shoot, and that's what keeps me active.
Right, right. So it's not forced. So how about your siblings, though? Have you been like, come on now, you all got to get it together?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I talk to my brothers and sisters all the time. I said, you know, diabetes running our family. You guys got to get moving. And I remember.
How are they doing?
Oh, this is the thing, because I went over to my mom's house just when I got back in from China, and I said, I'm coming over to see you today. So how you doing? And I saw my sisters out there walking when I drove up. So the message is starting to get across now,
Right.
that they're getting themselves physically moving.
Yeah. And I know you interact a lot with kids who, at this generation, they're more unhealthy than the generation before them, and diabetes is almost always the culprit. What are you telling them about making healthy lifestyle
Well, the thing
choices?
is, they have more access to different types of foods, and not a lot of those foods are healthy, particularly fast food. You know, we cooked a lot in our era back when we were growing up. Matter of fact, as far as physical activity, we couldn't come in the house before 4 o'clock.
Right.
You know, your mom and dad said, don't even come home, stay out,
Right.
go
When
play
the
in the
street light
street.
comes on is when you come in the house, right?
And so we didn't have all the things inside to distract us, like all the video games. We didn't have all that stuff.
Right.
You know, so our parents kept us outside all the time. Now, kids are in the home all the time playing video games 3, 4, 5, 6 hours straight.
Right.
So there's too many distractions for them. So as parents, it's our responsibility to get our kids outside. My kids only have 2 hours to play video games. That's
a day, yeah.
And that's it. The rest of the time, you got to be outside.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
You know.
And they want to take a cue from what you're doing. I mean, you're being a good model of behavior about how you stay healthy. And if this is something that's in your bloodline, you've got to take control of it.
Well, I have a very active household. So we all doing something physically to keep us moving. I have a younger daughter who has spinal bifida. She's the only one because she's in a wheelchair, but still she's a very active kid too.
Right.
You know, she gets around without a wheelchair a lot of times, so she's getting her physical activity in.
Yeah.
But very fit household.
Yeah. When you talk to by the time this airs, you will have already spoken to the Southern Legislative Conference attendees. What's your main message you wanted to leave with them?
I think the main message is to don't be blind to this disease. This disease, if it goes unchecked, it's devastating. And when you go through amputations and things like that, that's the beginning of the end. So don't wait till something bad happens before you make lifestyle changes. The biggest thing that I tell people is that listen to your body. If your body tells you something wrong, there's something wrong.
Right. Because like you know, you're feeling lightheaded and, you know, thinking maybe if I can just sleep it off, it'll go away.
Oh, yeah, I was going to the restroom every 5 minutes. I was fatigued all the time, and my eyesight, I couldn't see nothing.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And so once I made that lifestyle change, 2 weeks after I started taking medication, I remember rolling over in bed, and I looked out the window. I could see clear as a bell. Everything was crystal clear.
Wow.
And that's when I knew. I said, it's working.
Right. Yes, because diabetes can rob you of vision. Of course, you mentioned the amputations and all kinds of other complications, renal failure, all kinds of things.
But I look at it as a blessing now because I look at my health a lot differently. And it holds me accountable on things that I need to do.
Yeah.
So I do things now that I didn't do 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah, like
so
what?
Like I go a lot of organic food. Anytime I go to a grocery store, anything more than 5 grams of sugar, I don't buy it.
Right. Oh.
And so it's things like that that I do that I never would have done before.
Right.
You know.
So you're like the poster child for combating diabetes and choosing to take control.
Yes,
of it.
because I can't come and talk to people about diabetes if I'm not willing to live by what I preach.
Yeah.
And I think it becomes kind of hypocritical to tell somebody to make a change, and I'm not willing to make that change.
Yeah, yeah. I want to go back a little bit. We've got just a couple of minutes remaining, and I just want to go back to your basketball career just a little bit. You know, not to wear it out. You know, and you're in the home state where basketball is king. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about
yeah.
that, right?
Oh,
We
yeah.
bleed blue. Unless you're a Cardinals fan from University of Louisville, then it's a different
Right.
shade of blood.
Right.
But if you think about all the one and dones and those kids who, you know, because they may have come from very similar situations as yourself. They were in poverty. It's their ticket to a better life for their family, for their mother. So you don't often blame them for that. But what do you think about that one and done situation we're in now?
Well, the University of Kentucky is the king of the one and dones, by the way. So, but how can you tell a kid with the money that's out here now, and it's crazy, astronomical amount of money, how do you tell your kids to stay in school? It's very hard. You know, there's an opportunity, especially a kid who can play, who could potentially be a great player. I mean, them guys, they're going to play 1 year, and that's it. And they're going to go to the pros. And our era was a little different because of the way the competition was
Uh-huh.
and how physical it was. You didn't go to pros out of high school back then.
Right.
You didn't go to college to 1 or 2 years and leave. Because there were some grown men in them
Right.
days. But college back in those days prepared us for the pros. And I think now, because of the way the league is set up now, I mean, kids can go early because a lot of the physical play is gone.
Right.
But more importantly, the opportunity is there for these players to be very, very wealthy young men. And so how can you tell them not to go early?
Yeah. In 2006, you were inducted in the Basketball Hall of Fame, and just last year, there was this big, huge statue erected. The Atlanta Hawks are erected in Phillips Arena right up front in your honor. When you think about all of the accomplishments like that, what's your favorite?
The statue still hadn't hit me yet.
It hasn't?
I mean, and it's been almost a year now, not quite a year, that the statue has been up, and I'm still blown away
Yeah.
by it. But it really makes you understand what you've done as a person, not just as a player, but as a person, because that statue represents basketball and what you've done outside of basketball in that city and in that state. So if I look at accomplishments and I look back on, that's probably the biggest.
Yeah.
What I've done, my total body of work, not
Right.
just on basketball.
And how much basketball did help you become a good man, to do things off the court?
Basketball was the launching pad for that.
Right.
And so basketball gave me the ability to look at other things outside of the game to make me a more well-rounded person. But basketball being that first love and that engine that really gave me the ability to drive all these other things that I do. I'm very fortunate, and and I thank God every day that I was able to play a game that I love and played on a different level.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly thankful. You did a
Thank you.
slam dunk interview, if I might say so myself.
Listened to and watched a great interview by Dominique Wilkins. Let me know what you think about this interview